So you want to know the hardest thing about making YouTube videos? Sometimes you just want to get some crap done and you just start working. You're like halfway through the job and you're like, that would have made a good video. Too bad I didn't start recording. So that's exactly what happened out here last night. I just got my new tires on. This Jeep is just too tall and I've wanted for a long time to take another leaf out of the pack back here. This was a 7-leaf pack originally. I took out number 7 and number 5. What I did last night, I took out number 4 and number 6, and then I found number 5 and put it back in. So there's 4 leaves in here now. I also removed, I had some shims in there because I had a feeling that with this coming down a little bit that I didn't need the angle anymore, and that's going to take a little bit of height out of there also. So that's where we're at. Now the next thing that I want to do is move on to these ugly shock mounting brackets. I originally had them down here, and I'll get you a better shot of them in a minute. And when I upgraded to these Steins, they weren't quite long enough. Like I could droop out like two inches farther than these, even though these were one of the longest ones they made in this valving. So I just kind of quick welded these other tabs up here. But I don't like how far back they are. They put the shock in a bind and stuff. So I'm going to cut this rear tab off and move it to this side and kind of just weld it onto whatever's left of this. Now I could cut the whole thing off, but I don't have time to reinvent the wheel right now. Now another thing I'm going to have to redo is this traction bar, because every time you raise or lower the height on the Jeep, this ends up in a different spot. You can see there's 2 different holes here. This was where I originally set it up, and then when I pulled those 2 leaves out of it, the ride height came down a little bit. Nothing would line up anymore, so I basically connected it here. I connected it at the shackle end up there, and then I marked where the new hole needed to be and drilled it. It's really hard to get a drill in here, so what I may end up doing is just cutting these tabs off and just templating new tabs. I'm hoping it drops like 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I'm gonna have to trim a little bit of this rear corner to accommodate the new tires. I don't want to go too much, so I'm just gonna take about 1 inch, kind of taper it into this a little bit, and then flex it out, and we'll see how that does. Now we're gonna get this caliper out the way so that I can get in here and cut this back tab off. And now in order to cut the tab off, I have to cut this mount off again and find a new place to mount it for the 3rd time. Hey, maybe while I have these apart, I can figure out what's making all the damn squeaking noise that this Jeep makes. And I think I might see what's going on there. So either these are the wrong pads. I'm pretty sure these are the pads that came with these calipers. They were 76K20, but maybe they're not meant for these rotors. When I got this axle, these rotors were on it. So was the disc brake kit, and it had Cadillac rotors. I think they're from an Eldorado, and they had like a mechanical parking brake that you could hook up to them. I just could not get the brakes to function properly with those calipers, so I switched to K20 ones, but I never changed the rotor because it all fit. Clearly, we got some issues. That's later's problem though. That's what I was talking about, the little tab. What do you think, plasma cutter or death wheel? Yeah, we're going death wheel. It's quicker. Well, that sucks. I can't get any closer without running into, there's a bolt here for my brake bracket and the wheel's hitting it. Well, after some careful reconsideration, we've decided to plasma cut it off of there. That time I didn't try to cut so close to the axle tube. Makes it a lot easier to come off. This thing is effing heavy. I use quarter wall 2-inch DOM. Ooh. I can get in there and grind that shit up. Yeah, that was at least 10 minutes of grinding just to get this one off, and now I still got this one and the two shock ones. kind of a pain. I have no idea what this little knob thing is on the axle, but whatever. This one was a cleaner cut with the plasma cutter because I stayed farther from the tube, but that means I didn't cut through any of the weld. Oh, the foreman's coming to check on my progress. Make sure I'm doing it right. Nope, just heading to the shitter. Tell you what, I spared you guys a lot of grinding. That was probably 2 hours worth of grinding last night. I got a little bit frustrated with kind of my plan for how to do this. To me, it's just kind of ghetto trying to build a bracket off of a bracket. In fact, I made quite a bit of fun of that when I was working on this axle. I simply don't have the time to cut all this off, smooth it out, and then build like a completely new bracket that comes way up here. It would not be hard to do, but I'm running out of time. It's like 6:30 on a Sunday night. I don't have time on the weeknights this week to do it, and I gotta be on the trailer next weekend, so it has to get done tonight. It's my quickest compromise for just getting this done. Something like that. So these tabs are a bit wide for this, which I'm gonna tack this to here, and then I'm gonna remove it and weld both sides of it on the bench. I'll trim the sides up while I'm there. Bring the whole thing back, weld around all 3 sides. I'll try to get some in here from this tab to that corner. Maybe a little something underneath. That little gap right there is gonna be fun where they had it rounded out. Stuck a washer in there so that my gap doesn't close up too much. And then I'm going to lay another weld on the back side of this tab because that used to be the inside, so it doesn't have much of a weld there. I don't feel like dragging my welder all the way back to the table, so we're just going to floor weld it. Ground would help. Got it welded up. I'm gonna lop these sides off to get her trimmed up. Then we'll throw it back in there and hopefully it still fits. Good enough for me. Ooh, look at that. She slid right on. Oh God, is that pulling it up? I suppose it's a good thing we got a hammer. Damn it. Watch that bolt never come out ever again. Oh. Yeah, I guess my washer trick didn't work. Shit. Oh, it's because I forgot to put it back in there like a dummy. Damn it. I just got to get some weld down this backside, see if I can sneak some in there. Boy, I can jump a gap. So I guess I can hold that shut too. Probably end up just having to bend these out a little bit to get that shock back in there. I didn't even clean this side up. I just put a big old chunky double pass in there because that used to be the inside, so it wasn't welded good. Turned out all right. Got the rest of this welded all the way around. Let's see if I can melt my phone. Right there was where that big old gap was. Close that sucker up. Could look prettier. There's the back side. I haven't even seen it yet. Got a little bit down in there, but I just can't reach the middle. Let that cool off, paint it, hook it up. This side's done. But now I get the fun task of catching this side up. good fit. Better than the other side was. Definitely out of practice with the safety squints. I keep missing. There we go. Holy cow, I'm sweating potatoes in here. But, hey, what was that? There's a spin, baby, spin. All right, we got her whipped up. It's a little bit hot still, so I'm gonna go inside and eat dinner. But it's on there. Ain't the prettiest thing I've ever made, but it gets the job done. After I get that painted up and installed, we can get back to the whole point of what I started doing here, which was seeing where the ride height ended up since I pulled that leaf spring out. I need new brake pads. The clip fell out of this and it had shifted in there and had a really weird wear on it, so I kind of ground it down, and I'm thinking that's what all the squeaking was about. But for now, it's just gonna have to work. Alright, we got it all done. There's the mount. Welded the little brake line tab back on there. It is what it is. This is the third different time I've changed where that's at, and that's why this hose looks so goofy. Yeah, you probably won't really be able to see in there, but the tops of these pads, they come out like 1/8 of an inch or so past the rotor. So there's like part of the pad that just doesn't wear down. So I tapered it off on all of them, so hopefully it shuts up. And then likewise, there's part of the rotor right here that it's not using. So maybe this bracket is just meant for a slightly bigger rotor or something. I don't know. I didn't piece this whole thing together, but I do know that it works, and it's gonna stay like that for a while. What I'm going to do now, before I still got to redo the traction bar, I'm going to put the whole thing back down on its weight, shake, rattle, and roll it. I'm going to re-grease and torque my shackles and the bolts. I'm going to go for a nice easy drive and kind of let these springs settle in before I make that new tab for the anti-wrap bar. Make sure the Jeep's exactly where I want it before I finalize that part of it. Alright, here's this side all done and dusted. Put some new bolts in here too, kind of good with the threads. Alright, I just set it down. It definitely looks like it dropped some. We got measurements to pull. And of course, my tape measure has wandered off again. Can you wonder why I could never find anything in here? Wait a minute. 31 and 5/16. I had 4 inches? You can't be serious. It actually does look quite a bit lower in the rear, which is exactly what I wanted. So before, my bubble was like over here-ish, like right on the line, like halfway. And now if anything, if this is right, our rear is actually a little low now. I can't remember how many degrees these are, but I took these shims out because I knew it was going to be dropping, and I kind of want to eyeball my drive shaft now. I'm not going to like measure it or do nothing fancy, but I know where it needs to be. Probably hard for y'all to see. It actually looks really good. It looks like it's right on point.
So I decided to go ahead and stick a camera underneath the Jeep, and I wanted to see a couple things. First, I wanted to see what the pinion angle looked like while I was driving, and I also wanted to see how much spring wrap that I'm actually getting without the traction bar, because I was kind of hoping that maybe I could just get rid of it. But based on what I'm seeing here, this thing's moving around quite a bit, and I feel like, especially when I'm off-road and things are really torque loaded, that it would go too far and cause some serious damage. It's also interesting to note there's some really bumpy road right here. You can see the suspension working pretty good, and it felt so much better without the traction bar in there. And no matter how good you build one, it's always going to transfer some of that up into the body. When you accelerate, it pushes up onto the frame and onto the body, and unfortunately you just feel the bumps a little bit more. It's a trade you have to make. Don't worry about that whistling. That's just the throttle body that I have. It leaks around the throttle shaft a little bit. Decided to goose on it a little bit there just to see how much it would pop up. It's kind of risky because I had no idea how much it was moving as I was doing this, and I could have snapped a U-joint.
I really think I measured something wrong because this does not look like it dropped nearly as much as it did before. It's really strange how it looks like that butt is up again. It does feel pretty good, and my shackle angle is a little bit better.
Oh, let's see if we can't heat this sucker back up in here. Oh. I had it upside down. Dumb. So with those 2 points attached, that basically tells me where this one has to be.
So I took these old tabs, welded them together, and I'm just gonna grind them down. I think I gotta take about a 1/4 inch off, and then I'm gonna go back to my original hole. This is the one I was just using, which, dang, that looks like it was egged out a little bit. But anyway, got some grinding to do. So the top edge needs ground away on one because my truss gets in the way, but these are close enough, the one's fitting, so I'm gonna separate them now. Woo! That was a good catch. Woo! Let's see if this will break them apart. So I need to take off just a little bit more up here at the top of this one. You can kind of see from here it won't let me get it all the way in. Other than that, everything's fitting real good.
I'm gonna put some washers on the inside so that my tabs don't end up too close together. And my washer for the other side.
They're not the perfect gaps, but I can weld a damn gap, so I ain't scared about that. So I'll get these tacked in, and I might even burn in the outsides before I release the bolt, but I do need to pull this out. I gotta trim the top of this. I think I talked about that earlier. Hopefully you can see that it sticks out way above this. And I'm just concerned about it hitting that.
And by that I mean this super ghetto fuel tank homemade skid plate thing my Jeep has. I tried to modify it to tuck it up against the body, but it didn't work right, and I had to put a spacer back in there. If you ever wondered what it's like to get your hair stuck in the creeper, that's what's going on right there. Didn't feel so good. Went ahead and put a couple really thick double passes on these tabs because the traction part puts a tremendous amount of force on the axle, and I've seen plenty of people break them off on the trail.
Hey, I did something right for once. Well, it's nice to have that one checked off the list. I gotta be honest with you.
That was a whole bunch of work for not that much gain. I mean, the ride is a little softer,
and it did come down a little bit, but I'm not convinced it's more than an inch, and I'm not sure what I was smoking when I wrote that stuff down, because clearly it's wrong, but whatever. Now I do believe I'm going to drive this thing to work tomorrow to give it a nice little test. So that didn't go as planned. The whole point of what I was doing in this video was to get the Jeep ready to go to Colorado with 4 of my buddies. And throughout this week, as I was recording it, they kept kind of dropping out of the trip, and it was down to just me and one other guy. And right after that last scene you just saw, I got the call that he wasn't going to be able to make it. He couldn't get his Jeep to run right. It was overheating and pinging really bad, and he had been working on it for a week trying to figure it out, whatever. So the trip was canceled. I was kind of deflated, and that's where that ended. So we'll have to wait till the next time I get this off-road to see how, you know, how these changes work out and see how the new tires do. The good news is, kind of on a whim, on a last-minute deal, I decided to take a different off-road trip, but we didn't use this Jeep. We used the Rubicon that I have, and me and my girlfriend went kind of on a solo overland trip, if you want to call it that. So as soon as I finish this video, I'll be working on that one for you guys, so keep your eye open for that. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next one.